Oh, yeah, we do, don't we? No, my clock says 1 o'clock. Here. It makes me nervous. But maybe I get Calvin's attention with that. All right, welcome to this extra installment of the Utah Wildlife Board meeting on Wednesday, March 7th. We appreciate everybody being here. Let's remind everybody that these are public meetings and what's the right word? Not televised. Broadcast, live streaming. They're live streaming. So be careful the way you pick your nose over there, you guys.
That mean we have to behave?
Yeah, just behave yourselves.
Dang it.
Let's start with some introductions as usual. Steve, if you want to start on that end and come this way.
Yeah, my name's Steve Dalton, represent the southern region. I live in Teasdale.
Kevin Albrecht, representing Southeast Region, and I live in Farron.
Calvin Crandall, Central Region. I live in Springville.
Byron Bateman, I live in the northern region in South Weber.
I'm Kirk Woodward, and I live in Vernal, Northeastern Region.
And I'm Mike Fowlks. I'm the director for the Division of Wildlife Resources.
Donnie Hunter, Cedar City, Southern Region.
Carl Hurst, Central Region. I live in Orem.
Typically, we have our rack chairs at this point, but this meeting really isn't a rack chair issue, so we don't have them in attendance today. We recognize all the hard work that the public process does, and particularly the racks and their chairs. We appreciate them, and we recognize all the division personnel that are here today to help and to inform us on this issue. So, I guess we have to go over last meeting, don't we, with minutes and okay. Has anybody had opportunity to look over the minutes from our last? Well, I guess the agenda is. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda, or I'll hear a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting. I'm trying to get ahead of us.
You can make that motion, you know.
I can, huh?
You can.
Yeah.
It's usually not done by the chair, but it can be done.
It won't be done.
Okay, I will make that motion
I'm
that
too
we.
shy. Colin.
Okay, all right. You're afraid to speak up. Okay, I move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I have a motion
And I will second that.
and a second from Kevin. All in favor? Unanimous. Have you had time to look over your minutes from our last meeting? Are there any questions or discussion on those minutes? Any things that need to be changed? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
Okay, I have a
I'll
motion
second
from
that.
Kevin and a second from Calvin. All in favor? That's also unanimous. Okay, Byron, is there anything on the old business or the action log that we need to go over today?
No, I heard back from Covey and Justin. There was nothing to be come up till our next meeting in April.
Well, this
so,
wasn't a scheduled meeting, so I wouldn't assume that anything
no,
was scheduled for
there's
that.
nothing for the action log. We will discuss a couple of items coming up in April, and that's it.
Okay. All right. Director Fowlks, do you have an update for us from the division?
Yes, I do. And first off, I just want to say thank you to the board members for being willing to come in and deal with this unique situation. I know it's a little bit difficult to get into Salt Lake on a short-term notice, and so I appreciate your efforts coming in today. A couple things I wanted to cover. As you may have heard, we were doing our trap and transplant and our capture efforts, and they've been going well, except for we had a helicopter incident out in the basin. Happy to report nobody was hurt. Happy to report that we responded quickly and were able to follow our policy, and everything went smoothly after the crash, and we were actually able to get back in the business, find another ship, and so our efforts have been continuing. They've been successful, but we had to cut back a bit because of that accident. So just fortunate nobody got hurt. As you all know, the legislature's in session right now. We've been dealing with a couple of budget issues. Those probably won't be resolved until today or tomorrow, probably tomorrow. We're still working on those. There was no legislation that passed or got through that adversely affects the division, which was good. There was one issue where we had Byron and several folks come up from the sportsman's community and testify to that bill, and I thank you for those efforts as well. The last thing I think I'll give an update on is the application process for big game is over. We're still doing bonus point purchases. We're overall up 5% over last year. So again, robust applications and things went well. So, and that's all I've got.
You know, I haven't looked on the division website since I put in my application, but do we have anything on there explaining why there's a space of time from the last time that you can put in to the time that we, you know, that extended time that I hear from the public all the time, why do we have to wait till May? And I'm constantly explaining that's when we get our counts and that's when we set numbers, is in that April. But is there a way to put that on the division site, or is there a place for it?
No, not at this point. There isn't, but that's a great idea.
State your name for the record.
Oh, Lindy Varney.
Jeez.
No one knows me.
Got to give you a bad time at some point.
But yeah, no, actually, it's a great idea. We can work with our outreach section and put some FAQs about that.
I think that might not be a bad idea, because
Yeah.
I from all of the feedback I get, there's a lot of questions. Why do we have to wait clear till May?
It's
you know, these
true.
guys want to start planning their hunts, and so they think it's unfair that we put in February and not get any
And results and
results until May.
yeah, no, I'll work with our outreach and put something together to get that out there.
I think, again, the more we understand about the process, the
Yep.
easier it is for everybody to.
Hey, how about one more question?
Yes.
On our draw, when we have a auto mount permits, do we shift back and forth from maximum to non on those? How's that working?
So if,
Talked about it before.
yeah, so if we have 3 permits for one,
If we have 7 permits,
7,
uh,
3 will go to max point holders, and the 4 will go to the regular
and that does that
automatically.
automatically.
Yeah, and we don't switch back and forth. It's automatically to give the regular round the more permits.
We're constantly trying to work through those max point holders and the trouble that we're having on that end. Could we look at that and see how that would help us,
I could look into it, yeah, for sure.
and see if we could help that situation, or maybe go back and forth?
Yeah, I can look into it and see what kind of difference that would make.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Thanks, Lindy. Okay, for the rest of this meeting, it will go as follows. We'll hear a presentation from the division personnel. By the way, thank you very much for coming and being here. If you haven't been to a wildlife board meeting, welcome, and here's how the process goes. We'll hear the presentation from our division personnel. At that point, we will ask questions, trying to get any answers. We'll allow you to ask questions. At that point, after the questions have all been answered, there are 3 of you who have turned in comment cards and would like to address us. If there's anybody else that would like to address the board that has not turned in a comment card, you need to do so. These are the comment cards. Fill them out and get them up to Stacy. Oh, we didn't introduce you guys. Stacy, that's Stacy. Wave your hand over there, and that's 2. Thank you so much for all of your efforts with the wildlife board. Anyway, get these to them, and at that point we'll hear your comments. We'll give you 3 minutes for your comments to state the things that you want us to hear. At that point, we'll have more discussion and hear a motion for action from the board. Okay, so with that, I think Dax, you're up, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate you making the time to be here today. Let's see this remote here. I'll be presenting the Book Cliffs Wild Horse Bench 9-mile bison hunt extension. To begin, I'd like to show a map just to kind of so we can orient ourselves and understand the area we're talking about. The green line is the outline of the hunt boundary, the 2017 hunt boundary. On the right side there, kind of that peach color, you see the Book Cliffs unit. The gray lands in there are Ute tribal lands. Those are the Ute Indian tribe, and those are not included in our hunts. So you see in this map, there's a couple chunks, a couple parcels of that peach color land inside the green land, kind of in the northwestern corner of the Book Cliffs. That's the Wild Horse Bench and Agency Draw areas. In between the Book Cliffs unit and across the river to the west, you have the 9 Mile unit. The 9 Mile unit is divided into 2 subunits, the Anthro on the north and the Range Creek on the south. So just wanted to orient us as to the hunt boundary and the units that we'll be talking about. The bison were first documented in that Wild Horse Bench area of the Book Cliffs around 2009. We also documented substantial numbers of bison on that 9 Mile Anthro, the northern portion of the 9 Mile unit in 2011. We had documented a few bison here and there on the Range Creek prior to 2014, but in 2014 we started to see substantial numbers of bison show up on the Range Creek. I guess just to back up a tiny bit here, we have a bison management plan in place for the Book Cliffs unit. We do not have a bison management plan for the 9 Mile unit. We're not actively trying to manage towards having a bison population on the Range Creek unit. But as I'm explaining here, we began to see more and more animals show up on that Range Creek unit. Most of these bison are migratory animals that spend a large portion of the year on Ute reservation lands, on tribal lands, and it makes it complicated for us to manage the population because a good portion of the year they're on Ute tribal lands where the Ute tribe has jurisdiction and management authority over those animals. When they leave the reservation, though, they become our responsibility. Concerns began to increase as we saw more and more bison cross the Green River onto this 9 Mile unit where we don't have a bison plan in place. So we've done some bison hunting in this area. There were some depredation hunts or hunter pool, bison hunter pool hunts on the 9 Mile subunits. In 2010, there were a handful of hunters that were called and hunted a handful of bison on the Range Creek unit. In 2011, we had a depredation hunt for bison on the 9 Mile Anthro unit. In 2012, we started some bison hunts in that Wild Horse Bench area of the Book Cliffs. The first 5 years of that hunt, really high success rate, 97% success over those 5 years. We continued to observe bison on the 9 Mile unit during those times when we had the Wild Horse Bench hunt, and we were able to herd those bison back with helicopters. We had good success using those efforts, or mixed success using those efforts to keep bison off the Range Creek. In 2017, we saw this as an opportunity to extend a chance to sportsmen to help us with these bison that were leaving and going over onto the Range Creek unit. And so in 2017, we expanded the hunt boundary to include not just that Wild Horse Bench portion of the Book Cliffs, but to also include the 9 Mile unit. And we lengthened the season date because often those bison were traveling into the Range Creek area much earlier in the year, and we increased permit numbers. So we set that up for 2017. And in early 2017, large numbers of bison started to congregate on that Range Creek unit. And we worked to try to facilitate some hunting in that area. But the Range Creek unit access is very limiting. It's difficult to get in there. It's rugged terrain. There's not a lot of motorized access. And we started to observe large numbers of bison. Folks in the agriculture community that could have potentially been impacted by those bison were concerned. We were trying to use hunters, doing the best we could to get access in, especially across the Range Creek archaeological property that's managed by University of Utah. We worked with them. It was extremely difficult to get access in there. They don't allow motorized access, but we worked cooperatively with University of Utah and had some motorized access where the division could facilitate access in there. We took a handful of hunters in there, but we couldn't take more than 2 or 3 individuals at a time. We're trying to remove some of those bison, put some pressure on those bison, and there were 275 head. There were more bison than we could effectively manage or deal with using hunters. The ag community was increasingly concerned and basically demanded the division do something and do something now. It wasn't as effective as it needed to be. So we worked together with the Ute tribe and we requested their help to herd the bison off the Range Creek. And so on December 5th, the Ute tribe took a helicopter and pushed about 275 head of bison out of that Range Creek area and back across the Green River onto tribal trust lands. And it was successful. The bison didn't come back. They stayed out of the area. But unfortunately, it also meant that we had very few bison available to our hunters for the remainder of the hunt. I have the finalized data here. The 30-day reporting period for the mandatory harvest reporting for these once-in-a-lifetime bison have all been turned in now. There were 43 either sex permits. That includes 1 conservation permit and 42 permits that were given through the proclamation, through the draw process. 24 hunters harvested, and so it was 19 bulls and 5 cows. When you throw out the one individual that didn't hunt and the one individual that didn't file a harvest survey, 57% success, 79% of the animals harvested were bulls. However, there were very few bison observed on the unit, especially at the end of the hunt, which typically is the most effective and best time on this hunt. And this situation wasn't just because of difficult access, but actual absence of animals. The animals just weren't there. We went out and looked. I had my biologist go fly, and we just were seeing very, very few bison. Due to these unique circumstances, this helicopter herding that physically removed the animals available to hunters from the hunt unit, we recommend extending the season from August 1st of 2018 through January 31st, 2019 for the current hunt boundary, which now excludes the Range Creek subunit, for hunters that, one, had a valid permit for this Book Cliffs Wild Horse Bench 9-mile bison hunt in 2017, who, 2, failed to harvest a bison, and who 3, completed a timely harvest survey for the 2017 bison hunt. In the future, we through the rack and board process and communication with agricultural interests, we came to the conclusion the board voted to remove the Range Creek subunit from this hunt boundary, so that will no longer be included in the hunt boundary. We also are going to form a bison committee for the Range Creek area to deal with these issues in the future. And we continue to work cooperatively with the Ute tribe towards fencing, habitat improvement, and population management targets that will hopefully help us reduce the conflicts of bison leaving the Book Cliffs unit to the 9-mile unit where we don't have a bison plan in place. Hunting may still be an option in some circumstances on this Range Creek unit. In that case, we would use alternate list hunters, so we would look at the existing bison hunt and the next folks that would have been in line to draw a permit and extend the opportunity to those people when circumstances indicate that would be an appropriate action. So here's the 2018 hunt boundary as it has been modified. You can see the green line there is the new hunt boundary. The Range Creek subunit has been removed. So it still includes the 9-mile anthro, and that unit has a lot better access than the Range Creek subunit. I think we can have a lot more success using hunters on that 9-mile anthro portion. It's primarily public land, and there's a lot better access versus the Range Creek, where there's really limited access and a lot of private land. And it will still also include the Wild Horse Bench and agency draw areas in the Book Cliffs. For the 2018 hunt, there's still no guarantee. It may be a tough hunt. They may again encounter low bison numbers. We will take the board's decision today into consideration as we set permit numbers or recommend permit numbers for 2018. And the division, we always strive to give hunters a reasonable opportunity to harvest, but in a fair chase hunt, there's never a guarantee of success. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dax. Is there any questions from the board?
Dax, you mentioned that there was one hunter that didn't hunt and one that didn't report.
Yes.
Would they be included in what we're talking about today as far as?
The hunter who didn't hunt would. The hunter who did not report would not, is my understanding.
Okay.
Well, by your rules, if he didn't report,
yeah,
you couldn't. You said that you would, based on today's decision, set hunt numbers for the draw for next year.
Can I just respond to Byron's real quick? Lindy Varney, that one that did not hunt was actually a variance due to family illness. They qualified through the variance rule to extend the hunt to next year. So they did report their harvest survey, but they're extended to next year anyway.
And then we'll be hunting anyway.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Yes, sir.
You mentioned that you would, based on what we do today, adjust the draw numbers for next year. Can you give us an idea of what that means?
So If this extension request passes, that's 18 hunters that would be able to hunt again this fall, winter. So we would take that into consideration. If it does not pass, we'll recommend more permits for this hunt. If it does pass, we would recommend fewer permits for this hunt through the public draw process. So we're committed, based on the application guidebook that's gone out and through the November rack and board process, that this hunt is a hunt. We're going to give some permits through the draw. We would give fewer permits through the draw if we knew that there are 18 hunters that are going to be coming back again. Does that answer your question?
No.
Help me answer you.
I need numbers, not fewer or less than or greater than, because we gave 44 tags last year. We've cut the unit size down substantially, and I understand the issues there. We don't have to rehash that. But
I think
if you're going to give 18, if we're going to extend 18 and then allow 20 more,
and that's not what we would intend to do. I talked with the biologists. I think we're looking in the ballpark of 20 hunters is what we would be shooting for with the reduction in the boundary size. So if this passed, I think we would recommend 4 permits through the public draw process. That would put us at 22 hunters. If this did not pass, we would probably recommend right around there 22 hunters. So instead of 4, that would be new hunters coming in through the public draw process.
So
and
just
of course,
so
that's subject to the rack and boards if the,
as we set numbers in April.
Yes.
So just so we're clear on that, there are people who've put in, looking at that number of 44 last year, and then find out that there's only 4 tags available for there. That's going to be a number of hunters that will have put in thinking one thing, and so, okay. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I have a question. Go back a slide to your boundaries. Okay, that's your proposal now, or that's what it will be for 2018?
That's what we passed.
That's been decided by the board, yes. The Range Creek would be excluded, and just that anthro and then those northwestern portions of the Book Cliffs, everything
little
inside
bit
the
right there.
green
Okay.
lined.
Has that always been since when was your first hunt? When did we introduce the bison? When was the first hunt, and what were the boundaries?
So the first hunt in this
give me a history lesson.
Okay, yeah, the first hunt here was in 2012, and it just included the Book Cliffs unit. So it's just those 2 peach-colored parcels in the northwestern corner of the Book Cliffs.
Okay, so just those two little portions right there, not the whole Book Cliffs that are off to the east.
We do have some bison hunts that include the rest of the Book Cliffs unit, and we're dealing here with a different subset of animals. We're dealing here with animals that spend a huge portion of their time on Ute tribal lands and then migrate to this area typically later in the year.
So the Book Cliffs portion is its own hunt.
Yes.
Totally separate from what we're talking about. So we have 2 bison hunts.
Yes.
So we have the Book Cliffs, and then we have the Book Cliffs, 9 Mile Anthro, Range Creek.
Wild Horse Bench.
Wild Horse Bench,
yes.
all that. Okay. So this is a separate hunt.
Yes. And we've been having this hunt in one form or another since 2012 up until 2017. So 2012 through 2016, it was just this northwestern portion of the Book Cliffs. And then in 2017, we expanded it to include the 9 Mile unit.
Okay, and then how many permits from 2012 to 2016 on a yearly basis?
When we first started, it was a fairly low number of permits. I need to
ballpark figure, less than 10?
Yeah, that's where we started.
Okay, so a fewer number, and it's mostly these bison that come off the tribal lands in the fall and winter.
We started to see more and more bison coming down into this area later in the year. The first 4 years of the hunt, it was less than 10 permits.
Right, so it wasn't as big a deal, but now, hey, it was good for me, so I'm going to bring my neighbors now, and you got half the herd coming across there.
More and more animals coming.
More and more, so it's more and more of an issue.
Yes.
But we've also obviously have some hunting issues, some access issues that we can't access, so hence why we did what we did.
And the first
division.
5 years of the hunt, when it was just limited to this portion of the Book Cliffs, we had very high success rates. The hunt, worked well. As we attempted to expand the hunt to include these bison that were also on the Range Creek area, it did not work as well. Just access issues made it really difficult in that Range Creek area.
Okay. So your thought is to continue to have the Book Cliffs hunt and the 9 Mile hunt?
Yes. Yeah,
Wild Horse Bench, that's the proposal?
That's what.
No, that's what we passed?
Yes, that passed through the November rack and board process.
Okay. All right, thank you. No, that just clarified. And we did have the Range Creek portion, but we're now pulling that out.
Yes. It's pulled out.
Was that pulled out in November?
Yes.
It was pulled out in the November meeting.
That was the same time frame when really the ag constituency was concerned that the hunting wasn't effective at removing those bison. And so despite our best efforts to try to facilitate access down there, it
didn't work.
It didn't accomplish what we needed to in the time frame we needed it to, and that's why we did the helicopter herding.
Okay, thank you.
One other on the Henry's hunt. Once we start putting pressure up on the mountain, those bison run down, get out on the mesas where they're hard to get to, and sometimes it's prohibited in a national park. Is there something that's happening on the reservation ground that changed them from wandering to the northeast and now they're headed west across the rivers, or something that's going on there that?
You know, we don't know everything about these bison movements, but we have seen more and more animals moving off the Ute Reservation lands onto this Range Creek area. But we've continued to observe large numbers, 150 to 300 head that moved into the northern portions of this hunt boundary as well, up until this year. The Ute tribe is taking more actions to manage their bison population than they used to. They have a bison slaughter facility now where they're a bison meat production facility, and they are attempting to lower their bison population. They're doing some habitat work on tribal lands, and the division is supportive of these efforts for the Ute tribe to help with the issue of bison that leave reservation lands and end up especially on a unit where we don't have a bison management plan in place.
Any additional questions? Okay, any questions from the public? If you have a question, come up to this other microphone, state your name for the record, and ask your question for Dax. This is not your comment time. This isn't comment. This is questions to clarify. Come on up.
My wife had a tag for this area. When you're talking about the Range Creek...
Sorry, tell us your name.
Oh, Tim Hunt.
Thank you.
When you say that the Range Creek was not effective in the hunters going in there, we were not even notified that you were having a problem there. We would have been happy to drop what we were doing and go to that area. And there were some people that were notified and others that we were not. We're just, who notified them and why were we not notified to actually take part in that?
Yeah, good question. And Lindy or Brad, help me if I get this wrong, but with the restrictions on access, especially through the Range Creek archaeological site that is managed by University of Utah, motorized access is prohibited, and you can just get a day pass. They don't allow overnight camping either. To access these bison from the end of the road, from as far as you can drive to where the bison were, was 8-9 miles. It was a distance that was logistically prohibitive to harvesting a bison on foot especially. So in order to facilitate some harvest there, the division worked with the University of Utah to allow basically some taxiing, where division personnel taxied some hunters in motorized vehicles to access the bison. We logistically couldn't take more than 2 or 3 hunters at a time to do that. Our southeastern region personnel oversaw that effort, tried to get hunters in there, and they went through the draw order in the order that the permit holders were drawn, and started calling those permit holders and said, this is what we're doing, are you interested in participating? And a handful of people did, but they couldn't obviously extend that opportunity to everyone who drew the tag. Logistically couldn't take that many people at once, so they just went through it in the order that people were drawn for the hunt and extended the opportunity to people in that order. Am I stating that correctly? Yes. So that's what happened. Did that answer your question?
Well, it just still doesn't seem fair. If there was that many buffalo where you needed to pull a helicopter in there and run them off, why could you have not brought in more hunters at that time where the buffalo were at? And harvested more.
And you hit a point of diminishing returns, where if you bring in too many hunters at once, it seems like no one gets anything. You just end up getting everything stirred up, and it's hard. So, logistically, we just felt like we couldn't do more than 2 or 3 hunters at a time in order to be effective. But again, our window for access was closing. We had some storms in the forecast. Our ag constituency said, this isn't fast enough, you're not making fast enough progress, we're not getting this done. And so at that point, we said, okay, we're not logistically going to be able to realistically address the situation with hunters, so that's when we brought in the helicopter. So.
Okay, thanks. Any additional questions from the public?
Yes. So when our tag included the 9 Mile area, and if this hunt is extended for us, will we be allowed to go into that area, or that is taken away from us?
That's no longer in the hunt boundary, so the extension would be for the new hunt boundary.
So your plan is to still run the buffalo off of there with the helicopters?
They're going to form a bison committee for that Range Creek area, and I imagine that specific strategies for how to deal with bison when they show up on the Range Creek will be a big part of what's discussed in that committee, and I don't know that they're to that point yet.
We're also building
fencing.
fencing.
Run them to the north instead of back to the Indians?
They're also building fencing to try and persuade those buffalo to not get there in the first place. Lindy, I've got a question for you. I hesitate to ask. Do you have any feel for the number of people who applied for this hunt this year?
1,481 people have.
And how many applied for the year before?
1,131.
So about the exact same number.
We've gone up about 200 apps this year for this hunt.
For this exact hunt.
Yep.
But they were aware in the November meeting that we took the Range Creek out of that.
Yes, they were.
The boundaries.
They knew ahead of time that the boundary was reduced, but you still had 1,100 applicants.
And the same thing is true for all of our units. We know the boundaries, but we don't know the numbers.
Right.
Because the numbers won't be established until April.
Correct. And a lot of people, when we talk to them on the phone, that's the question, how many permits? And we say, it's always up in the air, but kind of look off last year's odds.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a general, it can go up and down, so caution, but
This one went down if we do this.
it would go way down.
Okay. All right, comments from the public. Our first one will be Stan Jones. Stan, if you'd step up to the microphone, state your name, and give us your comment. You'll have 3 minutes to give us your comment. Following Stan will be Frank Perry.
Thank you very much, Board, especially those of you who come from far away. I appreciate you doing this on short notice. I'm a lifelong hunter. I've eaten a lot of tags before. I've never had a hunt where I had no opportunity at all. Last year, when I when I saw the number of tags, after the numbers came out, I called one of the biologists and asked him. I was concerned about the number because it was increased by 2.5 times. They assured me that there were several hundred bison that would be on this unit and that there was nothing to worry about. I hunt hard, and I said this is my passion, and I'm not a road hunter. And I said I've eaten a number of tags, especially bow hunts before in other states and in Utah, but I've never had a situation where I had absolutely no opportunity at all. And I feel for the guys who I put in for 20 years. I feel for the people who may not draw a tag this year because you extend that to us if you choose to do that. But this is my only chance. I'm never going to have a chance to hunt bison again. I've been on the Henrys twice with friends of mine, and they're magnificent animals. And I would really appreciate it if the board would extend that hunt for us based on a lot of different things, most of which you don't have control over. But again, appreciate your time. And
Stan, how many days did you put into hunting out there?
12 days.
12 full days.
12 days. Probably walked 40 miles, and this is, I mean, those of you who know that area, that sand wash and that the wrinkles and that Argyle, it's, you know, this is not the Book Cliffs rolling hills of the east. It's ugly, nasty country, and yeah, I have fewer friends that will go with me this year if this hunt is approved. I can promise you that.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you.
Frank Perry. Following Frank Perry will be Tim and Tanya Hunt.
Thank you for this opportunity to let me take a minute. I just wanted to first say that Dax and Brad Crompton, I appreciate them too. Through this whole hunt process, they did everything I feel that they could do to help us harvest the bison, and unfortunately it didn't work out. I too spent many hours out in the field. I spent probably a total of 10 days out there on weekends, and a lot of money, time, efforts were spent with family trying to harvest the bison. I too have been a hunter for many years with my family and my father, and passed this down to my children and hopefully on down to my grandchildren. And I just hope that you will extend this hunt back to us to give us that opportunity to harvest the bison. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Tim and Tanya, are you coming up together?
Yes.
Come on up.
I didn't know we put my name down there with you.
After Tim and Tanya, we'll have Sarah, and then that's all the comment cards that I have. So at that point, the comment will be closed, so get a card up if you still want to say something.
We just wanted to also thank you for even considering this. I understand that either way, whatever you decide, I mean, there will be a lot of upset hunters if you do extend this because of the flack, you know, just calling us a bunch of crybabies. But you're going to have flack from us if we, no, we're not going to do anything. But my wife, I had a buffalo on the Henry Mountains back in '96. And was able to whack a nice bull, and we really enjoyed the meat and everything. And ever since then, she's, oh, I want to do that, I want to do that. And for 20 years, she put in and all these disappointments. Then finally, this year, we were able to draw the tag, and it was like a 6-year-old kid at Christmas, just all excited. And we probably spent 20 days there. This is my brother Rob over there that drew the same tag. We probably spent 20 days out there hunting. And to me, the proclamation is kind of confusing. It says August 1st through January 21st. Well, logically, when I'm looking at that in my mind, there must be buffalo there almost all year round. What a wonderful opportunity. And then when we actually start hunting, we find out that oh no, you're not going to see anything until you get some good heavy snow, and then it'll push them in there. Nowhere in the proclamation, which I think is a mistake, did it say that this is a migration hunt, and it's only going to turn out good if the weather goes bad. That was confusing for us. What?
Put in for that.
I don't think, yeah, no, we wouldn't have put in had we known that. And so it's kind of disappointing for us, but we understand you're under pressure both sides here on making a change, but we want to thank you if you are willing to consider this and extend the hunt to us. We would be very grateful. And what a lot of the other hunters don't understand also, those that are going to complain about this, if you do extend it in their areas, if they draw a wonderful elk tag or whatever it is, nobody goes in there with helicopters and pushes the animals away. And to me, that's just simply not right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah, you're up.
Hi there, and thanks to the board for hearing everybody's concerns. I have one question. I didn't stand up fast enough during the questions, so it might be for Dax that my question is. But I'm just wondering what percentage of the successful harvests, it was 57%, of those numbers, which were the ones that were personally guided out by the DWR to harvest animals versus who was successful when they were just on their own, randomly trying to find one lone buffalo?
7 hunters, 7 of the 23 that were successful, if I'm not getting my numbers confused, 7 were, those hunts were basically facilitated by the division taken into the Range Creek area.
Okay, so perfect, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here again, and we appreciate your comments. Typically, at this point, I would go over the recommendations made by the RACs, by the regional advisory committees that are out there. I think at this point it'd be good to summarize where we are and to have discussion about any concerns that you have about this next thing before we entertain a motion. So, in summary, what we're trying to decide is very simply, do we extend this hunt? Do we extend this hunt for next year and allow those 18 unsuccessful hunters who followed the rules to have another season and another go at this? We're not guaranteeing them anything, right? And this will be a hunt, and it still will be the exact same hunt minus a lot of country in the 9 mile. We're not guaranteeing them, those 18 hunters, successful hunting over the next year, but we're giving them an extra opportunity. And at the same time, we would be decreasing the number of tags that would be available to the next draw and that next group of hunters that may not know all of the situations that have gone on to what's happened this year. So I think that's a complex issue, but that's the end of it right there. Anything else that needs to be added or commented on?
You're going to say there was I'm concerned
Welcome to the meeting.
Yeah, with the numbers, that there would be 22-ish permits issued. Well, these 18, if we extend this, will come out of the 18 numbers, so there'll only be 4. And I guess that's going to be an issue. Well, yeah, the 4 would be added to the 18 to make up the 22. Versus being 22 out of the draw process. We're if we extend this, we're issuing the draw, those 18 tags.
Whatever number we set in April will be decreased by 18 automatically.
Yes. Correct. Yeah.
I have a question, Kirk. You've extended the season for these 18 permits. What about the 4 that weren't part of this group, the draw permit this year? Are they going to have the extended season to hunt as well?
Well, they'll have the season that they put in for, which is the exact same season.
That's the same season as last year.
Oh, okay. So it'll be the same season as the rest.
So basically what has been proposed by the division is that we allow these 18 to hunt the next season.
Okay, great.
That's already been established.
I just have one comment. There's a couple of good things come out of what you guys brought up to us today. And one thing would be, the boundaries of the unit itself, the difficulty of this hunt, and that it is basically a migration hunt. That's something, it's too late for this year because the proclamation's already gone out, but for next year, that's something we need to incorporate, Dax, if those things are applicable to this unit, that we would put an asterisk by that to let people know. So is that, going forward next year?
Yeah, so the Utah Hunt Planner, has a write-up on all of our big game hunts, and there is a write-up in that Utah Hunt Planner that talks a little bit about the nature of the hunt and how it is a migratory hunt. I don't know that we have room to have notes about every hunt in the application guidebook. We would encourage our hunters to look at the hunt planner and read the information there before they apply, but I realize not everyone does that. But the information is there, but you maybe have to look a little further than just in the application guidebook to find some of those details.
Well, maybe it's something we could just put like an asterisk by it, a little footnote down the bottom. You look at the asterisk, it says go to the hunt planner concerning this hunt. And other hunts are, have kind of similar situations, because I know when I go through and I'm applying for the hunts like that, I just go which unit I want to go hunt on. I don't go in and read the hunt plan or anything like that, but it should be. That's
your mistake.
I know.
So I just to be careful here, I don't want to muddy the water. What happened here isn't that we didn't explain it well enough in the guidebook or in the application process. What happened here was, due to circumstances, we allowed a helicopter to move animals off huntable areas, and they didn't end up moving onto other huntable areas. So there's a large measure of success or not success that we may be responsible for. When I say we, the division may be responsible for. Whether or not you did the research and knew what hunt you were applying for. I happen to have a partner who applied for this hunt and didn't know what he was applying for. He was very successful, and he killed a very nice bull. But he was disappointed when he found out what he'd drawn when it came down to it, because he hadn't read the application. And at that point I said, well, you should do more research before you apply for your hunt. So all of that aside, you know, we can debate that back and forth and how we put together our guidebooks and how we put together our websites. But in this circumstance, I think we really need to take into account that there was something other than weather, something other than not enough knowledge of the unit. There was one extra factor there that is different than any other hunt that hopefully we'll ever run into again in this circumstance. And so I think we need to think about that as we make this decision.
Right. Comment that I have with that along those same lines. This is a different beast, if you will. Do we need to look at, and we can't discuss it, well, we can discuss it, but we can't vote on it here today, but does this need to be taken out of a regular hunt and just, hey, we're going to manage this year to year as a depredation migration hunt, and you may have it, you may not have it on a year-to-year basis?
I think I can answer that. If you look back at the history, this has been a very successful hunt for what it was before. This year, some things changed. So
we just had more animals, but that's a concern that I have. Does this need to be a regular hunter?
Completely, I think is a mistake. I don't think that's a.
I'm going to say, and that's what I'm hearing. Should this just be a depredation hunt only? And some years we're going to have it, some years we're not. I don't know. That's just something that I'm hearing, and that's a different issue for, you know, we'll have to discuss that in November when we make that proposal. But that's what I'm wondering. Do we need to make this on a year-to-year, case-by-case hunt rather than a regular hunt every single year?
Well, and that's maybe what will happen with the 9 Mile Range Creek area as they did make decisions on how to handle those animals in that area. But at least we're not advertising that people can hunt that area when it's very difficult to hunt that area.
Okay.
But basically, this is going to go back to what it was before, Dak. Exactly the same as it was in 2016.
It would still. So back in 2016, it was just the portions in the book on the Book Cliffs unit. So it would still be bigger than it was in 2016, but smaller than it was in 2017. So it would include that anthro, the 9 Mile anthro subunit. It did not
include that in 16 or any time before that either, did it?
So from 2012 to 2016, it did not include the anthro portion.
That's correct.
It was just the wild horse bench, just those two little slivers. That was the hunt.
Yes.
You have expanded it in 17 and now in 18 to include the anthro portion of it.
Yes.
Yep.
And again, because of the migration of the buffalo across the river.
And in 2016, I think we gave 18 permits, and that was just for the wild horse bench and agency draw portion in the Book Cliffs. And I think hunters harvested 17 of 18. It was, 90.
It was a very successful for that very small area.
Yes, and so this would still represent an increase over the boundary in 2000. Well, the boundaries changed, so the boundary is larger now.
Obviously, we've got a much larger area, but we're still keeping with a very small. Well, you had 18, and we're going to 22.
Well,
potentially,
that's
right, based on subject to what happens in our next meeting.
And when we're dealing with a migratory animals, it's a little bit of a wild card. We want to do the best we can to extend opportunity to sportsmen to help us manage these herds, and we want sportsmen to have an opportunity to harvest bison. And we've got to try to find the right balance, because sometimes you have unusual circumstances like we did this year. Up until this point, you know, about 40 hunters have hunted buffalo and done great, had a great experience. And this year, you know, another 20-something hunters had a great experience, but about 20 didn't. So that's one of the. It's a little bit of a crapshoot when you put in for a migratory hunt.
So again, let's not muddy the waters today. We're not setting numbers today. All we're doing is voting for an extension or not extending these 18 hunters hunt. And then we'll have to deal with the rest of that during the next process in April when we set hunt numbers. Kevin?
One thing that you brought out, Kirk, that I appreciated, that it's a circumstance that is why we're here, that we had to push the bison out because of what we were dealt with, and you pointed that out, and I appreciate that. One other thing that has come up that I've seen through the testimony that's been given is I think there's been an incredible amount of effort by the Southeast region and the Northeast region to accommodate because of the circumstances. Have you ever gone on a hunt where you were escorted by the division before? That's pretty incredible, and I just want to point that out. I think that they've really worked hard to do all that they could to accommodate this hunt, even though we're still here today. I just want to point out that there's been a lot of effort and a lot of work, a lot of phone calls, a lot of things that they've done, and I think they did an incredible job.
So I guess we're still friends, Dax. Okay. Okay, I'll allow it. Come on up.
I don't know if this is a good idea or not, just maybe a possible suggestion that maybe keeps the hunters who have applied happy and also us. But when you have a depredation hunt in the 9 Mile Range Creek area, if we were not extended this hunt, would it be possible to keep us on a list of depredation hunters that you could maybe call in the future and go into the 9 Mile Creek area and harvest a buffalo there? Just because of what the events of this past year.
Mike, how would that happen?
I don't know.
Justin, your head's poking up. How could that happen after the tag's been?
When you do have a depredation hunt, how do you pick hunters?
You go to the pool, the list
Alternate
of draw.
list.
You go back to the it's just an extension of the draw.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be very complex for a once in a lifetime tag.
I think so too.
We don't say once in a lifetime harvest. We say once in a lifetime tag.
I would agree. And to Calvin's point earlier, when you were talking about should we do away with this hunt altogether or not, one of the nice things of having, Justin Shannon, Wildlife Section Chief, one thing that is nice about having this hunt boundary and this be on a hunt that hunters can apply for is we have a list of hunters that want to hunt this area, and you keep those numbers low, you have your alternate draw list already to deal with these types of issues. And if we didn't have that hunt on the boundary right here, where do we go to get those? The other side of the Book Cliffs, the Henry Mountains, it just makes it more difficult. And so I think the best way to go moving forward is keep this hunt boundary as is, and I know we're not trying to muddy the waters, but that's one of the beauties of it is you have a list of hunters that we can pull from in the future if we need them. So,
okay, thanks, Justin. So the answer to that question is Marty, Mr. Bushman, you didn't come all the way to the front just to be turned around, did you?
I'm basically winded. Marty Bushman, I'm at the Attorney General's office. The question of could we potentially take these permits and then preserve them in some kind of depredation pool over the next year or two to use them on the Range Creek for depredation hunts gets more problematic because of the once-in-a-lifetime restriction. Somehow we have to keep those permits alive, and that's why the season extension worked here is we're not issuing a new permit, which our rules would prohibit, but we're extending the season on the permit that they have, and it'd get much more difficult and complicated to indefinitely extend a permit's, validity for a period of time to see if they get called up on a depredation pool hunt.
So let me interpret that from lawyer lingo.
I understood.
No.
Tobacco lingo.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bushman. Okay, I think we've had the question. I think that was a great suggestion, actually. So I guess I'm ready to entertain a motion on this matter.
I can make that. We find ourselves in a position again where we don't make everybody happy, and there's going to be people that are going to be upset one way or another. But I'll make the motion that we extend the season for these 18 hunters. And
why not? Let's
be generous.
18 hunters, and then solve the permit numbers in April, but extend it for these 18 hunters.
Okay, I have a motion to accept the division's proposal as stated, that we extend the hunt, which is well spelled out by Dax's proposal. Do I have a second? I have a second by everybody up here. Choose one. I'll choose Donnie. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Unanimous. So you hunters will have an opportunity to hunt again. You won't have a guarantee to kill something next year. You'll have an opportunity to hunt a migratory unit next year. Hopefully you'll be successful.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike, and you guys. Oh, okay. I thought you guys were done. Turn the microphone off and done with it. I do not have any other business that needs to come up. Is there anything else that I'll entertain a motion to adjourn?
I have one quick question, and I don't know whether to make it as part of this or not, but I see Darren sitting in the back. We talked about, when we did the trapping rule, about a trapping working group. Where are we at with that? And maybe I should just talk to you after the meeting.
Is it legal for Darren to be in?
I'll just
this
visit with
building
you after the
dressed like
meeting,
that?
if that's fine.
Did we drag him from his day off in the hot tub or what? Glad you could be here, Darren. Appreciate you being with us. Did you miss the memo that there was a meeting today? And that we have to wear a tie to this meeting? Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Byron gives us a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.